Hey guys! Today we're diving into another truly horrifying case. If you want to support my channel, make sure to subscribe and stay active. It really helps me out. I'd be super grateful for that. Let's get started. A young woman with a spotless reputation, surrounded by the care of family and friends, suddenly breaks up with her boyfriend and becomes emotionally withdrawn. Just a few days later, she's found lifeless in the bathroom. At first, it looks like a heartbreaking tragedy brought on by young love. But the deeper authorities dig, the clearer it becomes. This wasn't just a misfortune. It was a trap, carefully orchestrated. But by who and why? Renee Marsden was born on October 15, 1992, in Sydney. Her mother, Teresa, raised her on her own until Mark came into their lives. He wasn't just Teresa's new partner. He became a real father figure for Renee. When Renee turned 5, Teresa and Mark got married, and their family grew with the addition of her younger brothers Luke and Jake, and her sister, Monique. Renee was Teresa's only daughter from a previous relationship, but she never felt like an outsider, even though she and Mark weren't related by blood. Their relationship was warm and close, and as she got older, Renee officially took the last name Marsden to reflect her connection to the family. Renee was always known for her bright and open personality. She was emotional, yet grounded. People loved her for being genuine and always willing to help. She had a natural way of making people feel at ease. Despite her gentle demeanor, Renee had a quiet inner strength shaped by her life experiences. After graduating, Renee began working at a healthcare facility. She still lived at home with her parents, even though she was highly independent. She often helped care for her younger siblings and stayed involved in family matters. Despite being an adult, she never tried to distance herself from her home. Family remained her anchor. She wasn't the type to start arguments. Renee preferred talking things through, listening, and finding common ground. But at the same time, she knew how to stand her ground. This blend of kindness and inner resolve made her vulnerable, not to open hostility, but to subtle manipulation, especially when it came from someone close. That's when Camilla Ziden entered Renee's life. The two met while attending a private Catholic school. What began as a friendship built on shared interests and dreams for the future quickly took a darker turn. Camilla showed a constant need for Renee's undivided attention. She couldn't tolerate the idea of competition, especially from guys. Anytime Renee tried to make new friends or spend time with other girls, Camilla would lash out or grow cold. Over time, Camilla's behavior became possessive. She demanded Renee's full attention, tried to control her social interactions, and would have outbursts of jealousy, even over something as small as Renee mentioning a classmate. Renee started to feel uneasy, though she didn't immediately understand what was happening. Still, ending the friendship wasn't easy. Camilla was a skilled manipulator, charming when she wanted to be, persuasive, and quick to play the victim. She created the illusion that she needed Renee in her life. The emotional pressure kept building. Camilla could suddenly shut Renee out for days with no explanation, only to return acting warm and affectionate. The back-and-forth dynamic drained Renee. The relationship became toxic, marked by a cycle of emotional attachment, confusion, and psychological stress. Moments of care were overshadowed by manipulation and emotional instability. Over time, Camilla began pressuring Renee about her clothing choices and who she could spend time with, imposing her own preferences. Any pushback was met with hostility. If Renee tried to voice disagreement, Camilla would break into tears, accuse her of betrayal, or say she didn't value their friendship enough. Her manipulative behavior became increasingly sophisticated, relying on emotional pressure, guilt-tripping, and passive-aggressive tactics rather than open threats. Even after graduation, their connection didn't fade, it intensified. Camilla continued to influence Renee's decisions, maintaining control in the relationship. Renee grew more withdrawn, Her personal boundaries slowly eroded, making it nearly impossible to recognize how dangerous the situation had become. The changes in Renee were hard to miss. She grew anxious, quiet, and began avoiding social interactions. Her mother, Teresa, sensed that something was off. But Camilla, who always remained polite in front of adults, became even more calculating behind the scenes. Their friendship evolved into psychological dependency, where Renee lost her sense of agency, and Camilla took on the role of an emotional abuser. This period laid the groundwork for what would happen later. By the time school ended, Renee was worn down by the constant stress. The arguments got more intense, and Camilla's outbursts more frequent. Renee began to open up, first to a cousin, then to her mother. She started expressing a need to distance herself, saying that the friendship felt suffocating. But every time she tried to pull away, Camilla would find a way to reel her back in, either through emotional pleas or vague threats about disappearing altogether. Renee made her first real attempt to break free by transferring to a new school, but soon after, Camilla transferred there too. Her reason? I can't be without you. At first glance, it looked like an act of deep friendship, but in reality, it was just another way to maintain control. The new school didn't offer the fresh start Renee had hoped for. Camilla was still there, hovering in the background, texting constantly, inserting herself into Renee's daily life. Camilla's attempts to control Renee's life escalated. She would randomly show up at cafes, gyms, or on campus. If Renee didn't reply to messages right away, her phone would be flooded with missed calls. Renee started hiding some of her plans, but that only increased the pressure. One day, Renee couldn't take it anymore and ran away from home. She didn't tell anyone and didn't have a plan. It was a spur-of-the-moment escape attempt. But even far from home, she didn't find peace. Camilla tracked her down and convinced her to return. After that, Renee started leaving home more frequently, staying with relatives, friends, or renting short-term apartments. Her mother, Teresa, was deeply worried but didn't know how to help. A direct conversation with Camilla led nowhere. Camilla insisted everything was fine and accused Renee of being inconsistent and ungrateful. Even therapy didn't bring clarity. Renee struggled to explain the issue because Camilla never used direct threats or open aggression. It looked from the outside like a confusing emotional bond, one where Renee felt guilty for simply wanting her freedom. Then came a moment that changed everything. Camilla struck Renee in public, on a busy street, surrounded by people. It was sudden and humiliating. What stayed with Renee wasn't just the act itself, but how strangers reacted. Some turned to look, others quickly walked away. That moment served as a wake-up call. The breaking point came on the day of a football game. Camilla caused a scene right there at the stadium, screaming, blaming, and attempting to get physical. After that, Renee stopped answering her calls, blocked her number, and moved to a different address. Camilla then left the country, suddenly, without explanation. It seemed like the nightmare was over. When Camilla returned from her trip, she came back with a shocking update. She'd met someone new, a man named Braden Spiteri. She claimed they connected while she was visiting a correctional facility. Braden, she said, was serving time for a serious offense involving a fight that had resulted in someone's passing. Although he insisted it had been self-defense, the court handed down a long sentence. Camilla painted Braden's story as one of hardship, resilience, and injustice, intended to evoke sympathy for a man with a complicated past. That's how Renee first heard about him, through Camilla. Camilla acted as the go-between, sharing stories about him, reading his letters aloud, and showing pictures. Over time, she began passing on messages that were supposedly from him, first verbally, then by phone. Renee didn't realize how she'd gotten drawn into the exchange. It started with short messages and soon evolved into long letters. Braden shared his past, reflected on life, and expressed deep gratitude for her support. It all felt genuine. Braden had a distinct way of communicating, a blend of vulnerability and strength. He was open about his past struggles and trust issues, but said he saw in Renee someone he could finally rely on. He asked about her life, her family, and opened up about his innermost thoughts. Camilla was just the messenger, or at least she claimed to be, relaying messages back and forth. Eventually, it became a routine. Renee began receiving texts from a separate phone, messages she believed were from Braden. He never called, only texted. Camilla said it was due to restrictions tied to his confinement. At some point, Renee fell for him, a man she'd never actually met. He seemed caring, attentive, supportive. Braden painted vivid pictures of their future together, talked about being free, starting fresh, and said he'd never felt anything like this before. He spoke of building a family, a home, and a life, offering Renee the stability, warmth, and sense of direction she had long been missing. Camilla was deeply embedded in this dynamic. She claimed to be helping two lonely souls find each other, but in truth, she maintained full control over their communication. Renee had no direct access to Braden. Every message had to go through Camilla. Even the gifts Renee sent for him went to Camilla first. A few weeks in, Braden created a Facebook profile and added Renee. The page looked real, with photos, updates, status posts. He began messaging her from that account. Their connection deepened. He became part of her everyday routine. Morning texts, goodnight messages, even discussions about their wedding plans. All of it became intertwined with her real life. From the outside, the situation looked off. There were no phone calls, no video chats, no in-person meetings, but Renee believed it all. Each interaction felt like proof. Letters kept coming, the Facebook page was active, messages arrived on time. Camilla remained involved, occasionally disappearing for a few days, claiming to have visited Braden at the facility to deliver Renee's letters. She'd return with new stories, pictures, and fresh messages. No one around Renee knew the full details of this relationship. She kept it private, even from those closest to her. Her mother knew she was talking to someone, but not much beyond that. Renee felt like if anyone found out, it would ruin everything. The secrecy only made the bond feel more intense. And in that isolation, Camilla once again became central. Not as a controlling figure this time, but as the gatekeeper between Renee and what she believed was her shot at happiness. The relationship with Braden moved fast. Renee became deeply immersed in her connection with someone she had never seen in person. He became part of her daily rhythm. She woke up to his messages and fell asleep thinking about him. Braden emphasized trust. He said it was crucial for him. He asked Renee to keep him updated on her every move and interaction, promising honesty in return. But over time, his demands escalated. He wanted to know her exact location, requested explanations for where she went, who she met, and eventually got access to her passwords, all under the guise of keeping her safe. If Renee didn't reply right away, Braden would accuse her of not caring. He'd say she was ignoring him or being disloyal if she talked to other men. He grew jealous of her friends, colleagues, and anyone new who entered her life. Yet, he continued declaring his love, called her his bride, and even asked her to start picking out names for their future family. Renee found herself under constant emotional pressure. She began apologizing for every perceived mistake, growing increasingly anxious in her efforts to please Braden and avoid upsetting him. Braden framed his controlling behavior as love, claiming it was his way of protecting her, shaped by the difficult experiences from his past. Outwardly, Renee's life looked unchanged. She still went to work, spent time with her family, and stayed close to her mother. But emotionally, she became more isolated, sharing fewer details with anyone around her. She feared judgment. She worried someone might question the relationship and destroy a bond she had already invested so much emotion into. At times, Braden would suddenly go silent. Renee would text and call, but no response. Camilla would explain that his phone had been taken away at the facility, that there had been a security check. A few days later, Braden would reappear, thanking Renee for her patience, accusing her of jealousy, and reaffirming his love. This cycle repeated often: control, conflict, silence, then forgiveness. Renee began accepting this as normal. In her mind, she had built a vision of a future together. Camilla fueled those fantasies, adding little details, things Braden had supposedly said about her, how he dreamed of getting out and starting a new life with her. As time went on, Renee drifted further from reality. Braden became her emotional anchor, her sense of purpose, the center of her thoughts. Everything else started to fade into the background. And behind this intense connection, there was always the same figure: Camilla, the one who started it all and continued to steer it. Years passed since the relationship with Braden had begun, and that's when Ian entered Renee's life. He was calm, dependable, and a co-worker who couldn't have been more different from her previous experience. Ian treated her with respect and understanding. Compared to what she had gone through, he felt like a safe haven. Their conversations were easy, relaxed. He cared for her without being controlling. He never demanded explanations, never showed jealousy. Ian gave her the space to breathe, listening without judgment and never intruding on her boundaries. For the first time in a long while, Renee felt accepted and at peace. Their relationship developed quickly. Ian met Renee's mother, who was impressed by his kindness and sincerity. He was serious about the future and committed. Soon, he proposed, and Renee said yes. Her mother supported the decision, hopeful that Renee had finally found someone she could build a secure life with. But the past hadn't let go of Renee. Even after the engagement, she continued communicating with Braden, secretly, through separate channels. Camilla was still the go-between, arranging when and how they could talk, updating Renee on Braden's status, and reminding her of his feelings. Renee was torn between two worlds: the real one, where Ian stood beside her offering stability, and the imagined one, full of Braden's promises that, despite everything, still held emotional weight. The internal conflict was only growing stronger. Ian began to notice changes in Renee's behavior. She seemed distant, uncertain. He eventually asked her directly if she was truly ready for marriage. At first, Renee assured him that everything was fine, but soon after, she confessed that she was still in contact with someone else. She didn't go into detail. She didn't mention that the other person was a fictional inmate. But even that partial truth was enough for Ian to draw a line. Either they built a relationship on honesty, or it was over. Renee told Ian she'd decided to call off the engagement. He took it hard, but calmly. There were no dramatic confrontations, no endless questions. He just walked away. This moment could have been her clean break, a chance to leave the past behind and start fresh. But she chose to stay in the same story. Renee tried to justify her decision both to herself and others, saying she wasn't ready for marriage, that she needed time to figure things out. But in truth, she continued living inside a fantasy, clinging to the idea that she was wanted, loved, and needed by someone who didn't exist. This could have been her opportunity to break the cycle. But under the pull of that old emotional dependency and Camilla's lingering influence, she was pulled right back into the same destructive pattern. The chance to build a real future slipped away. Not because of pressure, but because she chose not to take it. After the breakup, the tension in Renee's life began to escalate. Camilla, who had re-entered her life, grew increasingly intrusive. There were confrontations, loud, public, filled with yelling, and even moments of physical aggression. One such incident happened outside Renee's home. Neighbors later reported hearing a heated argument with threats and accusations. Renee never contacted law enforcement. She preferred to keep the conflict private. Soon after, Camilla left town, claiming she was seeking treatment. Renee, meanwhile, tried to restore her emotional balance. She minimized contact with shared acquaintances and distanced herself from people connected to her past. Her communication with Braden stopped too. No more texts, no more letters. For the first time in a long while, everything went quiet. On July 5th, 2013, Renee sent Camilla a farewell letter. It wasn't angry, just a calm, clear message stating her decision to end all contact and move forward, free from the emotional hold that had defined so much of her life. The message was direct, but peaceful. It would be the last communication between them, at least the last one to which Camilla responded. Even with the distance between them, Camilla didn't stop trying to re-establish contact. She worked through intermediaries, gathering information about Renee and sending indirect messages through mutual acquaintances. These actions were subtle, but consistent. Renee felt uneasy but continued avoiding any direct contact. Later, it was revealed that Camilla never truly let go. Even while being physically absent, she was still keeping tabs on Renee, tracking her movements and maintaining access to details about her life. All of it happened without direct interaction, but with a constant, invisible presence. After sending that final letter, Renee cut off all contact. Camilla stopped responding. Braden also went silent. Days turned into weeks, and there were no messages from the other side, no attempts at an explanation, no signs of life. The silence was striking, especially after the emotionally charged daily communication that had defined their relationship. Now, there was nothing. Renee kept writing to Braden, at first with hope, then more cautiously. Her messages shifted from heartfelt to anxious, asking why he had gone silent and expressing how much she missed him. Some were short, others more detailed, but none received a reply. The last letter was sent at the end of July. After that, there was only silence. She didn't try to reach out to Camilla directly, but she did search for her online and asked mutual acquaintances about her. It was like Camilla had vanished. Every connection seemed deliberately cut off. Renee desperately wanted answers. She replayed every detail of her conversations with Braden, looking for signs or clues that might explain his sudden disappearance. She reread letters, re-listened to voice messages. Everything had once felt so real, so sincere, but an unsettling feeling was now growing stronger. Something didn't add up. During this period, Renee began voicing her doubts. In a quiet conversation with her mother, she admitted for the first time that she wasn't sure Braden was real, something she had never questioned before. On August 5th, she made a phone call to Goulburn Correctional Center, the facility where she believed Braden Spiteri was serving time. She gave her name and asked a direct question. Was there anyone by that name currently incarcerated there? The answer was brief and definitive. There was no such person, and never had been. That call marked a turning point. In a moment, the foundation of the past 2 years of her life collapsed. Renee didn't tell her mother the details of the call. She seemed shaken, but outwardly composed. Teresa sensed something had shifted, but couldn't put her finger on what. Later, she said there was a look in Renee's eyes that day, a kind of exhaustion she hadn't seen before. Afterward, Renee began searching for proof of Braden's existence on her own. She combed through names, photos, legal databases. She posted on forums, tried to track down contacts, but it all led nowhere. There was no trace of him, No criminal records, no news, no mentions at all. At the same time, she tried to reach Camilla. She sent a letter asking, "Where is Braden? Why did he disappear?" But Camilla didn't respond. In the past, she had at least pretended to be helpful. Now, nothing. Renee was left alone, trapped in a situation that made no sense. She couldn't explain what had happened, not to herself, not to anyone else. Everything that had defined her life for 2 years had turned out to be fiction. And the one person who connected her to that fiction had completely withdrawn, showing no interest, no empathy. There were no dramatic outbursts, no visible breakdowns. Renee accepted this new reality in silence, and no one close to her realized how deeply it had affected her. To them, she just seemed quieter than usual, but for her, it was the moment when she lost all sense of stability. The morning of August 5th, 2012, started like any other. Renee had breakfast with her mother, Teresa. She seemed calm, not upbeat, but not distressed either. Teresa noticed nothing alarming. Renee didn't complain, didn't cry, didn't mention any plans or express any emotional concerns. After breakfast, she went to her room. That wasn't unusual. Renee often spent time alone. At 12:44 p.m., she sent Camilla a message. It read, "I know Braden doesn't exist." It was the first and only time she made a direct accusation. No threats, no demands, just the truth. Exactly 4 minutes later, at 12:48 p.m., Renee took her final step. She walked into the bathroom and ended her life. It all happened quickly. Teresa heard the sound of running water but didn't think much of it. The exact time of death could not be determined. Investigators later concluded that Renee had used a stockpile of medication she had quietly accumulated over the previous months. Her body wasn't discovered right away. When Renee didn't come out for lunch, her mother knocked on the door. Getting no response, she opened it and found her daughter unresponsive. Efforts to revive her were unsuccessful. Emergency responders arrived, but it was already too late. Renee was pronounced dead later that afternoon. The police arrived after Teresa contacted emergency services. At first, her passing was classified as self-harm, with no signs of foul play. The investigation focused immediately on collecting and analyzing digital evidence. Law enforcement specialists examined Renee's phone, laptop, backups, messages, and apps. The primary focus was the years-long correspondence with the fictitious Braden Spitery. Technical analysis confirmed that most of the texts and voice messages had originated from devices belonging to Camilla Ziden. Even though anonymous platforms and fake accounts were used, the origin couldn't be hidden. IP addresses tied to all messages and emails sent by Braden matched Camilla's home internet connection. Investigators recovered deleted conversations from Renee's cloud storage. It was revealed that Camilla had been messaging as both herself and as Braden, while also involving additional fake personas, accounts she controlled as well. The content of the messages showed a pattern of psychological manipulation, which mental health experts later categorized as a sustained form of emotional abuse. A pivotal discovery in the investigation was Camilla's involvement in the final days of Renee's life. Evidence showed that just 1 day before her death, Renee received threatening messages from the fake Braden, accusing her of betrayal. These threats appeared to come from fictional guards and relatives of Braden, also fabricated by Camilla. The message announcing Braden's death, sent the day prior, was determined to be completely false. People close to Renee, friends, teachers, relatives, all confirmed a significant change in her behavior over the past few years. Most knew Camilla as a close friend, but none were aware of the full extent of their relationship. Camilla had always portrayed herself as a supportive, intelligent young woman who was there for Renee during her long-distance relationship. During questioning, Camilla denied any involvement with Braden, claiming she believed he was real too. But that story quickly unraveled. When investigators confronted her with the technical evidence, Camilla declined to explain further and exercised her right to remain silent. Authorities determined that between 2009 and 2012, Camilla had constructed an elaborate, multi-layered narrative, constantly expanding the fictional world with new characters and crises. Drafts of letters from Braden, scripted dialogues, and detailed timelines of imaginary events were all found carefully organized, indicating intentional planning. Further analysis revealed that Camilla had used specialized voice modulation software. It was through these tools that she created the audio messages from Braden. These programs were installed on her personal computer, and the browser history included search queries about altering voice to sound male. Notably, none of this had been deleted, likely because Camilla never expected her devices would be seized. By mid-2013, the investigation had gathered enough evidence. Authorities decided to refer the case to the district attorney's office. After the investigation concluded, the case involving Camilla Zeden was referred to the New South Wales State Prosecutor's Office. The decision to bring charges sparked considerable debate, as this was the first time Australian prosecutors faced a situation where emotional and psychological manipulation was carried out entirely online through fabricated personas. Prosecutors carefully examined the communication between the victim and the fictional characters. Legal experts were brought in to determine what charges could apply. The primary focus was on the offense of causing another person to engage in self-harming behavior. Additional legal avenues included charges related to digital impersonation, manipulation through deception, psychological abuse, and fraudulent use of online identities. These considerations led to a multi-count indictment, with the central charge being the emotional coercion that allegedly contributed to Renee's death. Prosecutors understood the case could set a legal precedent. Australia had never prosecuted a case quite like this before. To strengthen their argument, a task force was formed, including specialists in cybercrime, psychology, and criminal law. Their goal was to build a compelling narrative showing that Camilla Zeden's actions were calculated, intentional, and had severe psychological consequences. In February 2014, prosecutors officially charged Camilla Zeden with offenses related to psychological manipulation leading to self-harm, along with associated violations. The case was prepared for a public trial. As the case moved into pre-trial proceedings, Camilla hired a team of seasoned attorneys specializing in cybercrime and digital identity cases. Her legal team's main argument centered on the notion that Australian law lacked specific provisions covering behavior conducted entirely in the digital realm without any physical interaction. The defense argued that Camilla's actions involved fictional personas, and therefore she bore no direct responsibility. They claimed that the interactions between Renee and these fictional characters could not be interpreted as actual threats or coercion, since Renee never met Marcos, Jason, or any of the others in person. According to the defense, none of these imaginary identities posed any physical danger. The defense also suggested that Renee's own mental health, emotional sensitivity, and vulnerability could have contributed to her actions independently of Camilla's involvement. Meanwhile, the prosecution continued building its case. They argued that the defendant's actions were deliberately aimed at destabilizing the victim's mental and emotional well-being, culminating in a tragic outcome that occurred shortly after another round of emotionally aggressive messages. The court faced a complex decision. Could encouraging someone to harm themselves through online-only interaction without any physical contact be treated as a criminal offense? To determine this, the panel of judges requested expert opinions from digital criminologists, as well as additional evidence and testimony. Renee's close friends, teachers, and mental health professionals were also interviewed. The trial attracted widespread public attention. The case raised critical questions about online accountability and the urgent need to update legislation to reflect new forms of digital manipulation. Despite the pressure from the media and public discourse, the court operated strictly within the bounds of the current legal framework. The central issue remained: could the digital evidence establish a direct link between Camilla's actions and Renee's death? After Camilla Zaidan was exposed, her family came under intense public scrutiny. Her parents did not speak publicly, but released a statement through their attorney expressing deep sorrow and condemnation of their daughter's actions. Camilla left Sydney and avoided the press, later changing her name. It was later discovered that she had enrolled in a medical college under a different identity, but after her connection to Renee's case became known, she was expelled. The Marsden family fought hard to have Renee officially recognized as the victim of a criminal act. However, the criminal investigation was closed. Her parents filed a request with the civil tribunal to prevent the unauthorized use of Renee's name in any public or commercial context. Despite petitions and formal appeals to authorities, their efforts did not succeed. The official investigation concluded that Renee's death was the result of self-harm, despite widespread public support for the Marsden family. Online communities continued to follow the case. Amateur investigators launched their own inquiries, created forums, and dissected the details. The identity and disappearance of Braden Spiteri remain points of controversy. Some believe Camilla acted alone, while others are convinced that someone else was involved. However, no evidence ever surfaced to support the latter theory. The story remains unresolved. Thanks for watching, everyone. Your support means a lot to me, and you can help my channel grow by hitting that like button, dropping a comment, and sharing this video. Your engagement really makes a difference. See you soon.